Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome y'all to this evening's 24 Hours of PASS, the Business Analytics 24 Hours of PASS. We have a great presentation from Mark Vergara, a Financial Director at Microsoft. This session is from Data to Insights, views from Microsoft Finance. My name is Thomas LeBlanc. I'll be your moderator today. I'm a Senior Database Administrator at Turner Industries. I'm also the Chair of the PASS, the Data Architect Virtual Chapter. If you go to SQLPass.org, there's many resources for information about SQL Server and many virtual chapters. If you'd like to be a part of one of those virtual chapters, go there and email somebody and tell them you want to help out. Today, I want to go over a couple things before we start this session. If you need technical assistance, there's a little raise your hand button on the far left. The IB Talk person will be there to help you with any problems. If you can't hear somebody, which will be odd because you might be able to hear me right now, you might have your volume muted. We will take questions and answers. If you please post your question in the Q&A section. What we're going to do is let Mark try to get through his whole presentation and demos first, and then we'll take the questions at the end. If you want to get a little more real estate, you want to maximize your screen in the top right corner, you can stay connected to 24 Hours of PASS by going to 24hoursofpass.com. All updates about sessions are posted there. There's links to the different sessions. There's some chat features here. If you notice in the chat area, there's an everyone chat area you can post to. You can follow on Twitter at PASS24HOP. Also, there's a couple hashtags, #24HOP and #PASSBAC. If you want more information. The recordings will be available around February 11th, and you can also watch them. They'll replay them tonight if you want to sign up for that. We want to thank our sponsors. Of course, the global sponsor is Microsoft. You all know where to go to find information about Microsoft. There's two other sponsors, Time Extender and D&B. Please go to their websites and visit them and thank them for sponsoring this. These all sessions are free today. And, of course, what we're doing is trying to promote a new conference that the PASS community is helping to host. PASS is the Professional Association of SQL Server. There's a wonderful global user group centered around SQL Server. It is run all by volunteers, which you probably find something about PASS around your local area, from a local user group to SQL Saturdays, now SQL Rallies, and, of course, the Summit, which is around October or November every year. The Business Analytics Conference is April 10th through the 12th. On the 10th is an all-day sessions, and then you have breakout sessions on the 11th to 12th. It's in Chicago, Illinois. There's a keynote speaker on Thursday morning, and if you'd like to go to the Business Analytics Conference, you can use the code 24HOP13 to get $150 off the registration. The website is PASSBAconference.com. There's many ways through Facebook, Twitter, and even a LinkedIn group if you'd like to know more information. These sessions today are being hosted by different PASS virtual chapters: the Business Analytics, Big Data, Data Architect, Master Data, Data Quality, and Professional Development. Please go visit their sites and thank them for helping to host these sessions. Mark has been around Microsoft apparently for almost 2 decades, it looks like. He leads the financial teams and does many presentations for thousands of users at Microsoft. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and turn it over to Mark and let him get started with the session.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to this wonderful audience. So I've been at Microsoft nearly 19 years in different roles. I spent most of my career in services, and at one point led the finance team for all our call centers, which is where I developed my passions for BI and for data visualization. Very early in my career, I realized how much data visualization can help you, and I also teach classes on data visualization. I'm still working at Microsoft Finance as a director, and I manage primarily the marketing spend for the Server and Tool organization. So I thought I'll talk a little bit about the job I have at Microsoft. Basically, as a finance guy, I really have two jobs. The first one is, let me see, there we go, is basically keeping people out of jail. I spend a lot of time every month making sure that people do the right thing in the right categories, and we recognize things the right way. But the other part of my job is to really help leaders make good decisions. So I don't build things. I don't sell things. The way most of my finance job is really helping people make better decisions. And how I do that is really by converting data to information. And it's not easy because basically I get a lot of rows of data. In my previous role, I used to do the weekly reviews with the US sub every week to look at the summary of the previous week's sales. And we have a business where we have a few $100 million a week. And so every week I had pretty much this, which is thousands of rows with data, which I have to be able to put in a consumable way to a diverse audience and present every week. And so that is a significant challenge, being able to have people very different background, different levels of analytics, different levels of skill, different knowledge, and be able to take millions of activities and net it out in just a simple way. And so everybody, we hear a lot about data scientists is the hot new gig in tech, statistics, and data scientist is really the sexy job of the future. And I have a little bit of a different take. And again, this is an opinion. I strongly believe that statistics will always be important, but I believe that the future, the way I see it, belongs to the people who can make the data consumable. I strongly believe that today, in most of the business reviews, we really reach a point of data overload. And I believe that a lot of the nuggets and the opportunities to right now lay in the existing data we have, and in better way of putting the data in context, in better way to triangulate the data, compare. It is still very, very, very hard. A year ago, I looked at the headcount at Microsoft that was leaving the company or that was transferring to other orgs. And it was very difficult for me to know what was their previous rating, what was their level, what was a lot of key information that will help me understand what kind of people are leaving the group and get some insight. So, and I truly believe that that's a problem that is across most companies. And I believe that we have tons of data available. So, in order to make my point, I think the best way to highlight this is to give you an example that we'll showcase later. To give an idea, at Microsoft, we spend, like most companies, hundreds of millions of dollars in airfare. And we had really good data. We use American Express. We had really good data. We had a row for each trip with 60 to 80 variables. How many miles we were traveling, how many days before traveling we bought the ticket, and we basically had around 25 slides per country times 50 countries. We basically had 1,500 slides. And so when I talk about making the data consumable, when you go through all these slides, it's not really a good way to make it consumable. And so what I've done, and I'm going to do my first demo, is that I build one slide in Power View to be able to do that. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you the view I built to replace those 1,500 slides. And so let me make sure you guys can see that. Start sharing. Okay, there you go. So here, you basically have a view in PowerView that shows you the airfare for one country. So I'm going to go in full screen mode. And this is one country, but we have all the countries, and I've used antique country names in the filter to obfuscate the data. But this is real data. This is the actual real airfare for a country. So here you can see that it's called Mesopotamia. It's the spend for one country. So the way I look at things, when I don't understand, I try to build an equation. And here we have the airfare cost was 3.16 million in fiscal year 10, 3.1 million in 11, and 3.1 million in fiscal year 12. Airfare cost is the number of trips times the cost per trip, and the cost per trip is the cost per mile times the number of miles. And so underneath you have some drivers of those different variables. So here when you look at the airfare cost, you notice that it went up from 3.1 million to 3.41 million. And so you look at the cost per trip going down. We'll talk about this later, but you see the number of trips increase significantly from 6.8 thousand trips to almost 9,500. And every time you travel at Microsoft, you have to put the purpose of your trip: external, you visit a customer; internal, meeting, trade show, training. So here, if we start interacting and look at the trip purpose, we notice that the mix of internal trip has dropped from 44% to 18%, from 3,000 trip to 1.75 trip. And so you know that this is not the reason why the number of trips went up. And if we click at external, we're going to see that the number of external trip pretty much double in the same time period. And so from my perspective, if I'm a finance person and somebody says, you know, your airfare costs are going 10%, you need to do something about it. Well, the reality, if those trips are to visit customers and generate revenue, cutting those may have a significant impact on the revenue. And so knowing why the number of trips went up is really useful, and PowerView is amazing in being able to give you the information in context of the total. And so one of the way you convert data to information is, you know, data is a number, 10, 15, 8. The way you convert data to information is first and foremost by doing comparison. That number 10 becomes information when you can compare it to previous year or to a target or to a forecast. And this is, comparing to the total really gives you a good idea. Another thing that we looked at is, okay, the cost per trip, so we're going back to total, went down from 464 to 357, all up. So I'm waiting for the screen to render. And so why did it go down? Well, in that country, we travel an average of 1,000 miles per trip, and it's a mix 80-20 domestic international. So this is not the driver, but the cost per mile dropped quite a bit from 44 cents to 35 cents. Most people travel coach, so that's not a driver. But if we look at the tickets, the percentage of tickets that we bought 0 to 6 days before we travel, you're going to notice, obviously, intuitively, that the cost per mile is much higher, close to 63 to 70 cents. And that ratio has been going down. And if we were to buy the tickets, 21 days ahead, we will notice that the cost per mile is a lot lower. So for me, being able to put all this airfare in the context of one slide, and then you can change country. So I obfuscated the country with antique names. I don't know which country is this one, but you can change and see every country available in context of total. So my point is, we went from 1,500 slides, very hard to understand, very hard to process, to one view that allows you to really consume. Now, making this view took me quite a bit of time because I had to speak to a lot of people, and then I had to narrow airfare to the key meaningful KPIs, metrics. And what's hard here is to make it simple without making simplistic, because I need to capture and keep the complexity of the airfare cost, but make it consumable. And so I strongly believe that the future really belongs to the people who are going to be able to make the data much more consumable. So let me go back to my deck. Let's see. There we go. And I think I stopped sharing. So
I'll put it back for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And so, again, 1,500 slide, one slide, where you have every country, where you can actually go from if you're a decision maker, go from a meeting with HR, and before going to meet a customer, you can basically go to a meeting and really consume the data, be able to make a decision and decide. And that's really, for me, the job of the future. And so I wrote a blog about it, you know, how PowerView changed my job, and it can change the job of 1,000 folks. And so doing this is pretty difficult because the notion of BI is to convert data to information, and it requires a lot of different skills. I think a lot of the approach we have today with BI is a technology approach, but I truly believe that the evolution will be to focus more on the business side. And the first skill that you need is obviously understanding the business. And I will share with you 3 or 4 demos, and I will actually build one from scratch to quickly show you how to build one. But understanding the business, what are the drivers, spending time and really netting things out is very important. A lot of the reviews we have today are big 11 by 17 tables, and the approach we take is almost like a buffet, where we basically throw up data on a slide. And the approach we need to take is more a layer approach, where we put the important things on top and we put more self-service ability. And so the other thing that is required, the skill, is obviously the ability to synthesize. This is very hard because, you know, when I was doing the weekly reviews, I had 15, 20 minutes to give the leadership team it's a good week, it's a bad week, watch for this. So I had to go through thousands of records, categorize, prioritize, and be able to convert all the activities into things that were consumable. And I truly believe that data visualization is really a key skill. And I think I'm glad to see, for example, you know, I encourage anybody to attend Alberto Caro weekly classes that he has right now. It's free, where it gives you basic principles of data visualization, you know, using a line for time series, you know, the challenge of comparing bubbles. Then when you compare bubbles, people actually compare more the diameter of a bubble than the area. And that's why bars are a lot better when you want to compare 2 data points than areas. So those are things that the science behind the data visualization is really key in able to build effective views. And approaching all of this like a designer with everything having a purpose and not a decorator is key. And everything needs to have a purpose. There's a reason why we use certain graphs. And the last key, obviously, is storytelling. Being able to, you know, structure all the data and being able to link it together. So somebody gave me a question about the name, Alberto Caro, C-A-I-R-O. You can, he's a professor at the University of Miami, and I think he's on the 3rd week, and it's like an hour. You register, it's free, and it's really intuitive. And obviously, Edward Tufte is really the godfather of a lot of this, and Stephen Few, in my mind, took a lot of Tufte principles and made it applicable to the business. So I'm going to do another demo. Somebody was asking me, what am I doing to do this? So I thought I would build one from scratch, because what I'm using, the product that I'm using that has really changed my job is PowerView. It's part of SQL Reporting Services, and we because in the past when I wanted to build something, I had two challenges. I had a design challenge, but I also had a technical challenge. You have to remember, I'm in finance. I am not very technical, and what's the revolution about this product is that it is very easy to use out of the box if you have good data model. So let me show you a little bit what I mean. So the way I use PowerView is that I have a Power Pivot, which allows me to build a data model. I obviously don't know SQL, so I use Power Pivot a lot. Being at Microsoft for 19 years, I had to use Access in the older days, and I was able to learn a little bit about the relational database. Sorry, I need to share my screen again. So I'm gonna up screen share, and when this hopefully you can see my screen. Let me see. So up screen share. I'm trying to, oh, there we go. There we go. Are you seeing my screen, or? I don't think you are.
No.
So I do screen share.
Right.
On the
launch screen share.
Sorry, launch. Oh, there's another button. I'm sorry. Start sharing. Okay.
Great.
Okay. Apologize for the delay.
Yep.
So let me. The way what's been a revolution for me, and hopefully you can see it. There we go. Perfect. What's been a revolution for me is how easy it is to use out of the box. So this is my data model. I have a raw data, and I use simple mapping table. And the ability for me to bring actuals, budget, so you see the data coming on the left, variance to budget, and this is real data. I obviously won't tell you for which region. I can filter what area, I can bring fiscal year, and here I'm in a SharePoint environment where I loaded a Power Pivot and created a PowerView. So this is it's a region where we have 980 million of actual revenue, 957 of budget, 23 million positive variance to budget, and 2%. So here we can put a title, financial summary, and then we can build the rest. So I can bring actual, sub-regions, and for an analyst, being able to build this, instead of having to work with IT and define requirements, being able to do this out of the fly and build the views I need are amazing. And the part that is also amazing in PowerView is obviously the ability to do it in PowerPoint. Since most of the business reviews are in PowerPoint. So this is the actual of the 980 million. Obviously, because I'm in finance, I use a lot copy and paste, so I can copy this, change the value, and do a variance to budget, and then sort it in descending order. So here we have the detail of the $23 million variance to budget. If we have an actual and we bring the view by quarters, I can have an idea of time series. So all of this, what I'm showing you, for a finance analyst, especially things like auto format, like how I move the charts and they format automatically, it's really a lifesaver. Again, here we can see that in the fourth quarter we have most of the revenue. And then we can build, two more quick views on variance to budget. So here I'm going to bring variance to budget, and I'm going to look at it by licensing. So pricing level to have an idea how well I'm doing for existing versus new customers. Again, really love the auto format. I do control and paste, and I'm going to change, and I'm going to have a view by product. So here I take out the pricing level, and I'm going to have a view by product, and I can also add some filtering out. So I can do all, and I can take. So here, something like this, it basically took me 10 minutes or 5 minutes, just a few minutes, and I go to full screen. And I can now interact in the business review and look, for example, this country, Carthage, drives half of our positive revenue of 11 million. Being able to click and see Carthage performance in context of the total and see that that country, although it's the best, struggles with our new revenue, our new customers. And if you click on that new second click, what you're going to notice is that although they are the best overall, they are the worst in one of the leading indicators in new revenue. You can see because of this bar. Being able to do this in 2 clicks, and this is actually happening in the business review, is really a revolution. Because, we finance folks will have to be with our big binders, we'll have to go back and forth, so I have a lot of static slides. But being able to do this in PowerPoint, which you can do, is really a revolution. And by the way, these kinds of metrics, at Microsoft, we call them watermelon. They are green on the outside, but they are red on the inside. So what I just did, for somebody who is not a technical guy like me, the ability to build something like that on the fly has really improved my relationship with IT guys. Because in the past, I'd have to work with them to really build this. Now they can focus on what they do best, which is the data, making it compliant, making it secure, making sure that we have the right taxonomies and master data tables, and versus spending a lot of time building customized dashboard for the audience. Because now I can just anytime change this and pull it. So there is a few ways you can have the data. The way I do this, I load the data from a Power Pivot into a SharePoint, and in that context, I use SharePoint also as a security. So if I want to share this, I can export this to PowerPoint. I have to save this view, and as I save it, we're going to call this pass test. I save it. I can now basically save it as a PowerPoint. So I'm going to save it as a desktop. So I'm going to save this in my desktop, and we're going to call this pass. So I'm saving the PowerPoint. And now I'm going to go to my PowerPoint. I'm going to open PowerPoint, and I'm going to open the object I just created. So we're going to go into my documents, into my desktop, and we pass test. So here I have basically the view I just created. So if I go in presentation mode, so this is the view. It's going to go, so it goes in presentation mode. It goes, I think, dark for a second. Hopefully the rendering will work well. So I need to show the other screen. So let me see if I can do this in just one single screen. Screen resolution. Only duplicate the display. There we go. So keep change. So as I go in presentation mode, hopefully this is gonna. There is my daughter there. There we go. So now I'm in PowerPoint in presentation mode, and if in SharePoint I gave you access, you're gonna have the ability to interact. So this is, for me, is a revolution, because most business reviews are in PowerPoint. I build this view in the beginning of the fiscal year in July. I send the deck. This is the view we just created. I'm in PowerPoint. And my business partner can interact in PowerPoint the same way I just did in SharePoint. And not having to send emails, to attach files, to send them one deck that they can save on their desktop, and then just refresh the data in the SharePoint. Every time they interact with the PowerPoint, they get the latest data and through the SharePoint. And so everything I do here, let me go back to my screen, is through SharePoint with a Power Pivot. If you were to load this from from SQL, you can have even user-level security in your PowerPoint. So for me, that has been a revolution because my business reviews are a lot more interactive. Let me show you a couple of other demos. One that I did is about a manufacturing facility in Puerto Rico. Again, we had a lot of slides, so I'm going to keep a second so it renders. There we go. So we had a lot of slides, and what I decided to do is try to build one overall view. Puerto Rico, we make all the CDs and DVDs for all North and South America. So if you go to a store and buy Halo, Puerto Rico would have made it. So they have around 20 machines. 2/3 of them make DVDs. 1/3 do the print that goes on the DVD. There's 3 main metrics: amount of units processed, the scrap, which is like the waste percentage, and then the utilization of the machine. I put a table, a little filter, CD, DVD. Here you can see the trend of products that we did a lot of Office and go down, and we were ramping up the games for the holiday season. But the beauty of this is that, you know, I have 56% utilization, 32 million item process. I can click on CD, and the entire slide is going to change and just show me the DVD machines. And you can see the utilization of the machine is a lot higher, 76%, that we produce 17 million DVDs. And you can see that the utilization of machines is higher. If I want to see one of the machines, like this one, which is the most utilized, this machine, DVD16, has 88% utilization, a scrap rate of 977, middle of the road, has produced 1.5 million DVD, mostly in the last 3 months, and you can see what kind of product they process. You can see the print machines. The point I'm making here is you can go from the entire factory floor back to a machine and forth. And so we go back to the total, and we can see the entire factory again, the 32 million. That ability to self-service and interact with the data in a way that is consumable to me is really what's going to be a revolution. Because after 19 years of going through big 11 by 17 tables, I truly believe that we reach a tipping point in the ability of people to process all this data. When you go through a business review, after, I'd say 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you know, you can see the energy going down, rightfully so, because it's just data overload. So that's another example. One thing I wanted to also share is that I've been using PowerView in Excel. So PowerView is available through SQL Server 2012, and I've used it here with SharePoint and Office. But it's also part of Excel 2013, Office 2013, as a standalone personal BI. So if you want to experience the PowerView lifestyle, you can play with Excel 13. And so I have a couple of examples here that I can share. I went to a portal. I think it's coming. It's called the NADA report. So NADA in Spanish means nothing, but it's also the North American Dealership Association. And I have this report, this PDF, that has tables in PDF. So if I scroll down, you're going to see tables. And so what I've done is copy these tables in Excel and use Flash Fill to build my tables and my model. And so what this came up to is that I build all these tables here in Excel. So you have Power Pivot and Power View in Excel. And so, and I wanted to kind of look at the data in a way that I felt was consumable. So here, for example, I'm going to wait for a second for the screen to render. Okay, you can see the amount of dealership in the last 20 years, going from 24,000 dealerships, car dealerships in the U.S., down to 17.5, and a significant drop after the financial crisis. These are all data points that are in the PDF. You can see that when the crisis happened in 2009, significant drop in car sales, and then increase after, but the price per car didn't go down. But I also was interested in the view by state, and this is the revenue by state. So you can see right away that the states with the biggest bubbles are California, Texas, Florida, and New York, and these are the revenues. So in California, in 2011, they sold $63 billion in revenue of new cars, and you can see the registration. The average employee per dealership, 50, they make around $49K per year, and the dealership makes around $35 million. But what's amazing about this is the interactivity. So you can click on a bubble, and you can see that California is the top. You can see the actual drop from 1.4 million to 1 million back up, 73 employee per dealership. You can click on the bar here in New York, and you can see the 4. The interactivity is amazing, and the ability to use maps. So what Alberto Caro teaches in this class is that bubbles are great to see a relative size, but they're very hard to compare. So comparing Texas to Florida is very hard because we tend to compare the diameter versus the area, and bars are a lot better. And the last one that I did in this case is I wanted to look at the new vehicle sold by manufacturer, which is also in the PDF, and you see how the American cars, GM went from 5 million cars to 2 million in 2009, and how the foreign car makers, manufacturers did a lot better. So these are examples that I use. I just did a meeting this morning with Rolex, and so again, I went to a public place where they have Swiss watch expert. They have data in a table in kind of the old school way with values in millions, and I think now you're seeing it in Swiss franc and change, and I decided to build a Power View based on that. And here you can see much better that exports of Swiss watches is a great business that has grown 16% per year in the last 2 years. You can see which country is doing well in terms of growth. They export 13.4 billion of watches in Swiss francs in 2010 to 18, and you can see what was fascinating to me is that Hong Kong imports twice as many Swiss watches than the entire U.S., which to me is fascinating. So again, if you want to interact, we can click on Hong Kong, and we can see for Hong Kong the increase for nearly 2.84 billion to 4 billion. Top importing, you can see the bubble here. So this, and the other thing that I've done is that I've put some filters. So here we can look at the Americas, we can look at Asia, and so all the countries changes to just Asia, 18% growth, 6.38 billion to 9 billion, with Hong Kong being the highest. And we can switch back to Europe. You can see the map view, you can see the top countries, and you can interact. This is the way of the future for business reviews, is going from a flat file that is very, you can see the growth, you can see things, you can have an idea, percentage growth, which is what I see, to something that is interactive and very easy for a business user to consume. So I have more demos, but I think in the interest of time, I'll be interested to maybe, let me see, stop sharing and go back if there are questions, comments about any of this.
You do have two questions, Mark.
Okay.
The first one is, are you using BPC, Hyperion, or Performance Point for planning and consolidation?
So at Microsoft in finance, to do a lot of financial revenue recognitions, we use SAP, and then we put the data in SQL, and everything else is done through Excel tools. And so what has changed a lot is in all our ROBs and the way we interact with our budgets of mid-year and looking at the performance is with PowerView. But we still use Excel a lot for doing some forecast, and it's all Excel-based tool.
Okay. The second one came when you first showed from the 50 slides to the one slide in PowerView.
Yep.
When you were showing that slide, I don't remember what kind of data, but this person is asking, is the tool pulling data directly from fields in a CRM or ERP system, or must it come from downloaded tables?
So I got a file from American Express that gave me, because we use them as a vendor to process all our airfare. The data could have come from a SQL table, could have come from a Power Pivot, to any tabular form. Because, again, my limited experience with SQL, I can do things with Power Pivot in creating mapping tables and joining all the data that I couldn't do in SQL. And so the data that I got is a flat Excel file. I think it was 1.5 million record. It was every airfare at Microsoft for 3 years. And it's not a lot of record, 1.5 million, but it could have been 10, 15 million. With the new Excel, the number of rows is not really an issue. But the ability for me to mash up the data and massage it with Power Pivot, and then use PowerView to present it and analyze it is amazing. So it was an Excel file.
Okay, and I think maybe they might also want to kind of know that once you get it out of one of these systems, you're either putting it in either a tabular module of analysis services, or in Excel you're using performance, what is it called, pivot?
Power Pivot.
Power Pivot, okay.
Yeah. And you're probably noticing, I'm sure there are people in the audience that I know a lot more about SQL. That's why I introduced myself as a finance guy. My expertise is in converting data to information, but I'm sure there are people that know a lot more about the process. What I know is that I can feed the data from Power Pivot or from SQL directly. And obviously, I do everything through Power Pivot. And I'm obviously, if you don't have good data, you really have nothing. It's the raw ingredients. And so when I meet customers and they have data challenges, it starts with that. I used to be the finance lead for our call centers, and when we consolidated all our call centers, the length of a call meant different things in different countries. So we had to spend months defining how would we calculate minutes per call. And then we had to have clear taxonomies. So, Windows Server meant the same in every country, and only then we had to really focus on technology. And so it's the notion of garbage in, garbage out. But I truly believe that in every company, there are at least good pockets of data. I truly believe that. And I truly believe that there's a lot of nuggets. The airfare data was available for years before I put it in a consumable way. It was there waiting to be used. And when I go to the field to people who travel and I share with them that it's 3 times cheaper to travel 21 days ahead or 6 days before, it's a lot more effective than trying to put a policy in place. People really understand, and they can almost visit the customer 2 or 3 times more if they can plan it ahead of time. Obviously, there is emergencies if a customer has technical issues, but I truly believe in the ability to show it in a way that is consumable and drive the right behavior.
Yes, I think this leads to the next two questions. It says, can you speak to the amount of effort required to build a data model for the MS data? It seems that there is a direct correlation between the data model and the benefit of PowerView.
Of course, of course. Well, PowerView, the amazing part of PowerView, if you don't connect your data, let's say I have the airfare, the number of visits that I do to customers, and I could by salesperson, and I can have the revenue of that salesperson. If I'm not able to connect those two data sources by the email name or the name of the person, PowerView loses all its value. So the ability to join different data sources is really the basis for the value of PowerView, because it's only because I can interact with and connect different and see it in different contexts that I can extract value. So typically, I spend 2/3 to 3/4 of my time going back and forth with the data, and it's probably because I'm not an expert. But figuring out, when you have 30, 40, 50 groupings, a laundry list of things, you got to narrow those groupings and categorize them so you can go in different layers. And so if you have a laundry list of things, you got to build a little hierarchy in mapping table. So I do spend probably 2/3 of my time, and I've started to learn a little bit about DAX, the power of DAX formula. So being able to put formulas easily that can help me, that can showcase like the cost per mile or the cost per trip was also something that is very useful. So it's really the basis is your data. And so I'd say 2/3 of my time is spent playing with the data before I can start building View.
And the follow-up to that is, are there any financial calculations that you have had problems developing using this system?
Well, it all depends how your data is structured. So if I have a column with actual and a column with budget data, like I have here, I can do variance to budget, which is, actuals minus budget. So it all depends on the two limiting factors for this is the data availability, the kind of data I have, and my expertise, my ability to come up with DAX formulas. I started scratching the surface, and I barely discovered the amazing power of the things you can do with DAX. It's amazing. I only do basic stuff, and so if we have somebody who is very good with DAX formula, and we can do so many things with financial formula with DAX.
And they've tried to make DAX similar to Excel calculations.
Yes. So, I use a lot the calculate, sum of, something like that. And I have to say it's becoming a lot more intuitive. And that's really the revolution this is what I love about the way Microsoft is approaching BI, is that it's making it easy for really technical dummies like me to be able to play with data. You have now basically the SQL engine in Excel 2013. So I can have millions of rows in Excel, insert a table, put a little mapping table, and use, obviously, everything to me is through a diagram view. That's how I join tables. That's the only way I know how to join tables. And so I have now the power to mash up data in ways that was never possible. And when you give those powerful tools in the hands of people who are closer to the business, it's really going to help the IT folks focus more on the data and give the analysts tools that allows them to convert that data to information instead of, going back and forth you know, with all the requirements. And typically when you get your dashboard, you have another list. They almost become obsolete. So the flexibility I have to add a new view, a new graph, a table in a matter of seconds is amazing.
All right, do you want to go ahead and finish your slides, and then we'll get to the other questions?
You know, I just wanted to say that, let me see, all the demos are on YouTube. So if you type my name on YouTube, you will see the videos I just did on manufacturing and sales. And what I've done is that I'm in the manufacturing video, I'm interviewing the GM, the general manager of the Puerto Rico factory, to actually bring his perspective and have him explain how he drives decision. Because remember, the data is here to help convert to information, so you can use this information to have impact. We always have to remember that. And I wanted to have a discussion with the business leaders so they can bring their perspective. So you can go to YouTube and look at these videos. I'm also started to be on Twitter, and I put a lot of stuff on data visualization. So if you want to, I'm at Mark Reguera. And the last thing I wanted to be clear is to tell you the 3 ways that I use PowerView. The way I use the most is, you know, a dynamic PowerPoint slide that is loaded from a Power Pivot that is in SharePoint. Because I don't have to have user level security when I talk to a leadership team. The best way and the most common way that Microsoft Finance has been able to use Power Pivot and PowerView is this way, and it works really well because there is security embedded through SharePoint. What I've been using more lately is just in Excel 13, where it's great, you know, like the car sales, it's all the data is in the workbook, it works well. The problem is that if I want to share, it's sometimes a few hundred megs, and there's no security embedded with it. And what we're working on at Microsoft is to actually feed the data from a BI semantic level with user level security. I mean, for me, the holy grail is that I have the business reviews in PowerPoint, and the France analyst opens it and can only see France data in PowerPoint because there's user level security. And the hoops and the steps we have to jump to get data, copy and paste into a PowerPoint, and all of that, it saves us so much time. So that's the third way we're working on. Any other questions?
Yeah, the last question says, are you bringing outside data into your models, e.g. weather?
So, not in the context of my job, because I don't think the weather in my industry really has any impact on sales. But I was talking with Starbucks, and weather impacts coffee sales, so they are bringing that in. We bring external data when we have market. You know, if I want to understand in Surveying Tools the revenue trend, I want to know what is the trend in server sales. You know, what is the server market doing to see if I have a good attach rate on the software. So the market data I bring is obviously correlated to industry, but with the ability of Power Pivot to machining up, it's a lot easier. And the example I give you, I went to a PDF, copied the data. It was in one row, the 3 or 4, and I used Flash Fill in Excel to create those tables. So I truly believe that this product is a revolution because it's easy to use out of the box, and it's driving a revolution in the way we do business reviews. Because most of the business reviews today are big, giant tables that just after 10, 15 minutes, people there is a lack of attention. People start doing email because it's. But when you have a dynamic Power PowerPoint slide, it's a lot more dangerous because people sometimes ask you to click in places you don't know what's going to happen. But I'd rather have that problem than have the 1 or 2 week follow-up emails with additional data. We have been doing reviews at Microsoft for over a year in 3 or 4 major divisions this way in PowerView. And we moved the business review from structured, rigid lecture to really dynamic conversation. And that to me is a revolution because the meetings are sometimes harder, but we bring, like, the country that is doing well, Carthage, you can see in 2 clicks that actually it's not doing as well as we thought. And that's a scenario that actually happened in the meeting. And it may not be obvious with a traditional BI tool because you have to go to different tables and triangulate in your head. And now you can just have a couple of clicks and explore the data very easily.
All right, that's the last question. Is that the end of your slides, Mark?
Yes. And so in April, I'll obviously have other models, and hopefully I have other things to talk about. But my focus is really on converting data to information. And PowerView, which is part of SQL Reporting Service 2012, has really changed my job after 19 years. Because if the sad part of my job, if you look at my best work, it's really PowerPoint with pictures of Excel, which is, my grandpa built churches in Spain. After 18 years, what I show my best work is, and so I now have things that are dynamic, interactive. It's still not a church, but at least it's a bit better than what I did. So I hope if you have any questions, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter. Don't hesitate to ping me. I am deeply, deeply passionate about data visualization and the business side of BI. I'm obviously not technical, so if you want to know about SQL, there are probably a lot better people. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mark. And I'll put the slide up again for the past Business Analytics Conference. And also, if you're on Twitter, there's actually a contest. You'll win something from Microsoft if you can answer a question from Mark. And the question is, why did the cost per mile go down? If you know the answer to that, get on Twitter, go follow Microsoft, at Microsoft BI, answer that question, and you probably get a chance to win something. Again, the past Business Analytics Conference is April 10th through 12th in Chicago, Illinois. I'd like to thank Mark again for doing this presentation. Obviously, it looks like he's doing a session. Are you just doing a regular session at the conference, Mark?
Yeah, no, I have I'm doing a session in April.
Is it just one of the regular sessions or the all-day session? Just a regular
It's part of the regular sessions.
Okay. What are you going to be speaking on?
The same topic.
Okay, good. Good. So if you'd like to know more or see more of what you saw today on 24 Hours of Past, you can go to Chicago, April 10th through 12th. This is sponsored by PASS and Microsoft. PASS is the Professional Association of SQL Server. It is a very large global user community of volunteers that help out with user groups, SQL Saturdays, SQL rallies, the PASS Summit, and now the PASS Business Analytics Conference. There's a code on the screen, 24HOP13. That'll give you $150 off the registration. Again, thank you, Mark, and thank you, Ivy Talk, for helping us with this. It was, I want to say, live meeting version of this. Works very, very well. And that's the final session for today. The recording will be up in about a week and a half. But you can also do them on demand in the next 12 hours. Just go to 24hoursofpass.com, and you can rewatch any of these sessions. Again, thank you, and goodbye.